For Mental Health Awareness Shabbat, I thought, which prayers address mental suffering? Not because prayer is a solution to mental suffering, but because I wanted to see mental unwellness represented in our Jewish texts. To be clear, depression is an illness, and yet it's also on a long continuum with normal sadness. And I think the dark end of the emotional spectrum is there in Tachanun, a section of the traditional daily prayer service. Tachanun expresses grief and bewilderment. It opens with King David saying to his companion, "I am in great distress. Let us fall into God's hand, for God's mercy is great, but do not let me fall into the hand of man." The traditional posture is to say this paragraph seated, with the head resting on the forearm, in a faint echo of the Talmudic name for Tachanun, Nefilat Apayim, falling on the face, a much more dramatic evocation of grief. Tachanun comes from the root chanan, which means to behave graciously and with gentleness. And so the prayer isn't just about expressing grief, but about eliciting a response to it, asking that my suffering be met with your kindness. And the sequence continues. Lord, do not rebuke me in your anger or chastise me in your wrath. Be gracious to me, choneni, Lord, for I am weak. Heal me, Lord, for my bones are in agony. My soul is in anguish. The psalm describes the dread and fear of depression, and the way it can be both frightening and also weirdly boring and tedious. I am weary with sighing. Every night I drench my bed. I soak my couch with tears. And the psalm ends with the brief fantasy that better times will come. Prayer is like acting. You slip into a script and go along with it. And in hitching myself to this liturgy, I feel part of humanity and my suffering is dignified. And so after this psalm, it suggested that we sit up straight and move from the personal view to a view from history. Guardian of Israel, guard the remnant of Israel, and let not perish Israel, who declare Shema Yisrael. And as the words become more expansive, so does the posture, and no longer abject. At the end of the passage, we stand up, and the text continues, "We do not know what to do, but our eyes are turned to you. Save us." And that's Tachanun. It's a short drama reenacting depression and survival, and also one that starts with me being alone and broken, and ends with us asking to be saved. We need prayers which express pain and darkness. What would be the point of prayer if it didn't take from the whole palette of human emotions? And yet when we feel most broken, we can't find the words ourselves. So an existing script is a great comfort. And also the gestural performance of grief, the relief of unburdening, the literal unfurling of the body in the course of this prayer sequence. This is a powerful affirmation that yes, grief is real, but so is our resilience and survival. Naturally, we omit Tachanun on happy days, on festivals and the days either side of them, or when there's someone celebrating present in the synagogue. But equally, we don't say Tachanun at times of incredibly acute distress. For example, on the 9th of Av, the year's saddest day when Tachanun would just be too much. And so Tachanun sits there in the Siddur, in the prayer book, offering itself, normalizing grief, sadness, even flirting with depression. Prayer alone is certainly not a treatment for depression, or even a cure for plain and simple sadness, but along with talking therapies and good self-care and medication, prayer can be affirming, dignifying, one of a package of treatments which can both allow us to feel what we are feeling and help us to feel seen and heard. Tachanun's message is to say that we may be suffering, and to remind us that we must ask for kindness in return. And that's the simple message I want to convey this Mental Health Awareness Shabbat. If you're suffering, please speak out and ask for kindness.